recovery. But today is tax day, and the AP had their list of the top 10 things to know about today. We're here to highlight one that didn't make the list, but that's tax day. And for families all across America, it's a day filled with a lot of anxiety and frustration as they're either sorting through the paperwork necessary to file their taxes, or they had to pay extra money to hire an expert or a software program to help them with their taxes. The good news is, after today, everyone can breathe a sigh of relief because this is the last time they will file using the outdated code. Next year, the Americans will be able to file their taxes with a simpler form. Next year, you won't have to tell the IRS whether or not you have health care because we repealed the individual mandate. Next year, families will be able to take advantage of an expanded child tax credit. Next year, everyone will see a standard deduction doubling. And most importantly, next year, for that typical family of four making $74,000 in America, they will have $2,059 in a tax cut. We are implementing a 21st century tax code, and that gives everyone a reason to celebrate. As I've long said, this is about real people. This is about families, moms and dads, small business owners, people from all walks of life. That is the face of tax reform. And later today, we'll be doing a roundtable highlighting some of those faces of tax reform, including Deborah Sawyer, who runs a number of sports clips. And because of tax reform, she's giving 18 team members raises, hiring more employees, building more locations. This week, we're also advancing legislation to safeguard taxpayer information, protect people from identity fraud and theft, rebuild trust at the IRS. We're taking steps to make sure this agency improves and becomes an agency that puts customer service first. So I'm especially pleased today to have the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Kevin Brady, with us. He's the one who has led this effort from the beginning to the end to end a broken tax code. Thank you, Chairman, for being here.
Thank you, Kathy. Tax day is the worst day of the year for most Americans. Tax week is the worst week of the year. Everyone in my house is in a bad mood during tax week, and for good reason. The tax code we've got today, it is complicated, it's unfair, it's just wrong. And the good news is today is the last time Americans will have to file their taxes under that old, broken, complicated tax code. Going forward, Americans are going to be able to keep more of what they earn, especially for those two-parent households, for that single mom fighting for the future of her daughter, for that mom and pop spending countless hours working through the weekends, risking everything to make their small business a success. They all win under this new tax code. And clearly America's back. America's back in a big way. We're no longer chasing the rest of the world. Now the world is chasing us, and we're seeing those hundreds of billions of dollars come back from overseas to be invested here in America, in our communities, in our economies, in our jobs, and in our retirement system. And starting next year, nearly 9 out of 10 Americans will be able to file their taxes using a simple postcard-style system. So they have more time to spend with their family and less time trying to collect the receipts and keep all the complicated forms that are required to address the old tax code that we're filing under today. Final point. Congress this week, the House this week, will undertake the first major reform of the IRS in more than 2 decades. A new tax code really demands a new tax collector. And Republicans and Democrats together are launching reforms that create a taxpayer-first IRS. Our goal is to redesign, refocus, and rein in the IRS. Redesign the IRS by insisting they bring back to Congress a comprehensive restructuring of the organization to focus on customer service, making sure there's truly an independent appeals process that puts taxpayers on the same level as the IRS so disputes can be handled more affordably, more fairly, and more quickly. and insisting that the IRS do far more to modernize, to protect our personal taxpayer information, something that frankly today they fail at in a major way. We redesigned the IRS to focus on customer service, not only insisting on a comprehensive customer service plan, but making the changes that bring the IRS into the 21st century. You know, we shouldn't have to use fax machines and outdated technology that our kids wouldn't recognize in order to deal with and get fair customer service out of the IRS. And then we rein in the abuses of the IRS by making sure they can no longer seize your assets or those of your small business without due process. And that they can't do things like, when you're being audited, just contacting your neighbors, your coworkers, your customers and clients in a way to pressure you to resolve that audit. So we really create fairness and a higher level of service for taxpayers. This was done over the past 2.5 years through a number of hearings and roundtables in the Ways and Means Committee. This is a bipartisan effort led by Lynn Jenkins of Kansas and John Lewis of Georgia, and reflects work done by more than a dozen members of the House. So today is about a day to celebrate a new tax code going forward and the work to develop a new IRS going forward as well. And final point, I want to thank our leadership, Speaker Ryan, Leader McCarthy, Kathy McMorris Rogers, our conference chair, and our whip Steve Scalise for the remarkable work they've done to make sure Americans have a new fair tax code. It wouldn't have happened but for their remarkable work, and for that I'm very grateful. Thank you.
I want to start by thanking Kevin Brady. Through this entire journey of changing our tax code, took 3 decades. But his leadership, his willingness to listen to all sides of the aisle, and his calmness was a really steady hand to make this happen. And I want to thank you for all that work. Like all the families across America, my family spent the last couple weeks working on their taxes. This is a frustrating day. But as Kevin Brady said, we will not have to face this day again. It's going to be much simpler, easier, and the combination of what we've seen from the passage of that bill, the millions of bonuses. We've watched maternity leave get extended. We've watched the minimum raise of the payment to individuals go up. But what's even interesting beyond what people thought would be, we've watched in more than 30 states their electrical bill go down because of the tax cut. And then we look at the studies. Do you realize we doubled the growth of what was under the last administration? And it's projected to continue to go. The only thing that Americans fear more than working on their taxes is having the IRS call them, or that you have to call them to try to get an answer, or God forbid, they knock on your door. Well, today, we're continuing to keep our promise. That, too, is all going to change. We have 13 bills on the floor. The IRS should be customer friendly, but it also should be secure with our data. Do you realize just in January and February, 75 companies had their data stolen? That's a 60% increase according to the IRS just from last year. So you're going to watch on the floor today and tomorrow. And we're going to pass these bills on a bipartisan basis. Again, the leadership of Kevin Brady. We're going to make the IRS customer friendly. We're going to protect the rights of the individual so you're not fearful. And we're going to have the IRS actually answer the question in a manner that you can deal with. And more importantly, we're going to make sure your data is safe. This continues on the agenda that we promised to the American public, and we're showing that we're getting it done. I yield back.
You know, I want to join Kevin in thanking the other Kevin.
Good, strong first name.
Isn't it? Yeah, it's a great name. You know, Kevin Brady and I, we sat next to each other for 14 years, I think, seatmates in the Ways and Means Committee, always working toward tax reform. And I just want to thank you for your leadership on this issue. It's been tremendous. This is such good news. It's good news for the American economy. It's good news for workers. It's good news for families. Recently, one of my former employers, McDonald's, announced that because of tax reform, it is going to invest more in tuition assistance for its workers. Just one more example. I remember when I worked there, I was in high school trying to save up. With a program like this, students can worry less about racking up so much debt, and they can stay on top of their expenses better because of tax reform. This sets up people for a good job. It sets up people for a good start in their career. This is the kind of real, lasting difference that tax reform is making in people's lives. Tax day is just yet one other example. Tax day typically brings out the biggest worries. You just heard about them. Paying for childcare, living paycheck to paycheck, all the anxiety that is involved in the paperwork. The trade-offs are everywhere. But this is the last tax day under the old code. All of it will become easier. Almost 9 out of 10 families get to use something like this. That is impressive. Instead of a system riddled with loopholes for the well-connected, you have one that lowers tax rates for everyone at every income level. You have a bigger child tax credit. You have nearly a doubled standard deduction. So you get to keep more of what you earn in the first place. That is such good news coming. And we go from hassle and stress of a complicated process to what I just showed you, this great form. With this new tax code, the typical family of 4 making the median income will get a $2,059 tax cut. That is real relief for families. And on top of all the raises and the bonuses that people have been receiving through tax reform, this is why economic optimism is up. This is why more companies are investing. This is why companies are bringing money from overseas. This is why jobs are being created. This is why wages are going up. Yet, Democratic leaders are still out there spreading doom and gloom. They call it crumbs. They talk about a dark cloud, and they are promising to take it all away. This law is improving people's lives every day, even on tax day. And when we get to move forward with a new code, that means new possibilities for people across this country. So the quick story of this is tax reform is working. It's actually even exceeding our expectations. It is giving us a stronger economy, a healthier economy, and it's going to make us more prosperous for years to come. Finally, I also just want to say on behalf of the whole House that we are praying for our former First Lady, Barbara Bush, and for her family. She is beloved by this country, and she is in all of our thoughts today. Questions?
On Syria, the president seems to be rejecting new sanctions on Russia that would target companies that helped the Syrian chemical weapons program. Is this a mistake? Are you encouraging him to impose these?
Well, I won't get into what sanctions should be applied, other than we obviously should be applying Russian sanctions. We've been applying Russian sanctions in multiple ways this year. I think the president's strike was called for. I think it was the right thing to do. And I think I was also impressed with the fact that he made a multilateral effort, that the French and the Brits joined us in this attack. We need to, the peaceful democratic nations of this world need to stand up and speak against and act against the spread of these horrific weapons. And I think the president did the right thing.
Mr. Speaker, if a new AUMF proposal from Senators Corker and Kane can get 60 yes votes in the Senate, would you commit to considering it in the House?
I won't make any commitments on any specific thing like that. First of all, he used Article 2 for this strike, which was a limited strike, which I think was the appropriate thing to do. The question that I will ask is can an AUMF make it into law, and does it tie the hands of our military behind our backs or not? That's what's important. So there is an existing authority, and this was Article 2 in this particular strike. But the current AUMF does have the existing authority. And the question going forward on any new AUMF is, does it give our military the tools they need, or does it tie their hands behind their back? That, to me, is the measurement of whether it's something that's worth supporting or not. Anna.
The individual tax cuts, as written now, will expire in a few years. Will the House or the Congress in general introduce legislation this year?
Yes. Yes. Rodney Davis has already introduced legislation, and we intend to act on that legislation this year.
And do you have a deficit impact estimate or what that would
I haven't seen the latest joint JCT tax run, but obviously these tax cuts are intended to be permanent. Look at just CBO just showed us that they've first of all, I've been reading CBO reports since I was 20 years old. And I'm actually not embellishing on that. CBO, for the first time since 2008, revised upward their economic projections. They're revising their Q4 projections to 3.3% economic growth. So what we are seeing is an economy that was growing 1 to 2%, now is heading north of 3%. That is exactly what we projected. That means people get to keep more of what they earn, and tax certainty is very important to keeping this good economic news going. So obviously we believe that that's necessary for economic growth. We fully intend to make these things permanent, and that's something we'll be acting on later this year. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Special Counsel Mueller, can you tell us and the American people why Congress, Republican leaders have not decided to take up any?
Because it's completely unnecessary.
And can you tell us why?
Yeah, because I don't think he's going to fire him. I don't think he should. I don't think it's in his interest to do so. I've answered this question pretty much every week. We do not believe that he should be fired. We do not believe that he will be fired, and we therefore don't think that that is necessary.
And why do you have confidence?
Because of the kinds of conversations we've had. It would be not in the president's interest to do such a thing, and I think he knows that.
Has he told you he wouldn't?
I'll leave our conversations to the private nature that they are.
Last question, to follow up on Russia's sanctions. I know you said you won't get into specifically whether you think the president should apply additional new sanctions, but can I ask you in this context, do you think the administration has been tough enough on Russia?
Oh, yeah. Look at where we've come. Remember the Barack Obama-Hillary Clinton reset? Remember them giving away missile defense to Russia for nothing in return? We have moved miles in the right direction on our Russia policy. Not only did we scuttle the reset, not only are we now sanctioning Russian citizens, not only are we sanctioning Russian oligarchs, we're sanctioning Russia itself. We have so improved our policy with respect to Russia, far more hawkish, far more realistic, and we've just passed legislation finally rebuilding our military, which is the strongest signals we can send. So the administration has moved and improved our Russia policy dramatically since the last administration. Thank you.